Welcome to the Massimo Show. Today we have a very special guest, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, Mr. David Long, who authored the book Built to Lead, 7 Management Rewards Principles for Becoming a Top 10% Manager. Not only is David a phenomenal writer, a phenomenal leader, but he's also a phenomenal friend. I've known David now for several years, meeting him at a mutual coaching opportunity. And with my special guest today, Mr. David Long. David, welcome to the Massimo Show.
Thank you, Rod. I'm happy to be here with you, buddy.
Well, I got to tell you, it's always a thrill. I know last time we spoke, I was down visiting my daughter down in Wilmington where you live. We had a chance to get some breakfast. And as always, you shared some fantastic stories with me.
Likewise. They were fun. We had a good time.
Well, speaking of fantastic stories, I want you to share yours because I knew it before. I thought before I read the book for the second time, but preparing for this, I read it a second time. And wow, what a story you have. So you're a person, when I think about it, in that Michael Gerber E-Myth kind of concept. There's a lot of folks that are really good at one thing and say, I could create a business. But the problem is, we have that technician, we have that manager, we have that strategist, and it's hard to do that. You have turned this idea of being a technician. You were a great salesperson. You are a great salesperson. And then from that, you built a phenomenal company. So take us back to when you just got started, before you built your business, just got started. And let's start with some of the failures you had and lessons you learned. David?
You got plenty of time. You got 3 or 4 hours. I can tell you a whole lot of failures. That's not a problem. Well, I like to tell people I started my company, my employees, which is the name of the company. I started my company out of desperation, not inspiration, which I'm sure a few people can relate to. I lost my job after being with a retail company, and I had reached the level of the top 7 managers out of 1,200 managers on the East Coast. And I got canned over a dispute over how to do certain things, and I didn't agree with it, so they canned me. At the time, it was devastating. Rod, I went through 7 jobs in 3.5 years. Man, trying to go for the Guinness World Book of Records was not my idea when I did that. But I hated everything I did. And as so many people lied to me about what I would be doing and what the job was. And it was just, they wanted me to come work there, but they were just totally dishonest in what they told me the job was going to be. But the beautiful thing about it is, and I really, really appreciate this, is that every one of those 7 jobs, Rod, I got one little piece of what I needed that I didn't have, that when I started my own company, it was like I had the complete package. And, I look back at it and it was a terrible time. I told my wife at one time, I'm not kidding you. I told her, I said, honey, I said, during this time, I wouldn't have blamed you if you left me. And she said to me, she said, Dave, she said, if I knew you weren't doing everything you could do, I probably would have. And so, buddy, that's kind of sobering. But she stuck with me. And now today we have a phenomenal life. We love our life. We travel, we take off 24 weeks minimum, a year of vacation. So then there's that, right? So
let's get back to, because, you share your desperation in the book.
Oh, yeah.
Share with the audience, where are you at the worst of times? Where were you living? How were you living? Talk about that.
Failure and despair, and moved back in with my mom and dad and my wife and 3 kids in tow into a little old 1,340 square foot house in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. And it was there that I started my business in the garage in a 5 foot by 5 foot spot in July in an unair conditioned garage, I might add, sweating my buttocks off. And it was brutal, but it wasn't even a month and a half before I had a little 9 by 12 office with AC, I might add. So that was a plus. But I started from there, and I traveled the entire Southeast from Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, and anything in between all of those. And I traveled for several years, and man, it just radically launched the business and my, if you want to call it, my new career.
Well, let's talk about the business. What was the business? What is the business? How did you decide this was going to be your business at that point of desperation to inspiration? Why this business, and what's it all about?
When I was in high school, I started engraving. I was an artist. I was the most outstanding artist voted at Hoggart High School here in Wilmington back in '76. And a couple of years before that, I had the opportunity to go work at King Olaf's Jewelers in Wilmington here and to learn how to engrave. So I knew how to do that. And then I got out of it completely. And then I actually was working at one of the 7 jobs, by the way, at the Circuit City in Charlotte. And I looked up on the wall and I saw they had plaques and they're about to run out. And I asked Don. I said, Don, who was the operations manager. I said, Don, what do you pay for these things? He told me. I said, really? So I said, would you mind if I make a few samples and let you see what I can do? So I made the samples. I brought them in and he goes, wow, these are nice. He said, you're going to give them to me. What are you going to charge me for them? I said, well, I'm going to save you about 30%. And he goes, oh, let's do it then. So I signed him up and immediately went over to South Boulevard and Freedom Drive and signed up the other 2 Circuit City stores. But that wasn't enough to stop the bleeding for me, buddy. I mean, I was still going down financially.
This is so important, David. So you see an award and you're attracted to it because you had the skill set in high school.
Oh, yeah.
The jeweler realized you recognized how those could be made. And so just intuitively, you asked the manager, how much do you pay for these? So there was an huge entrepreneurial opportunity going off in your mind right now.
Absolutely.
And so what role are you playing right now with Circuit City or with, I mean, where are you right now to think I could do something like this?
Well, I was just trying to make money any way I could to keep from having to, admit complete failure. And so I was looking for any opportunity I could to make money. And when I saw that, I'm going, okay, back to my skill set. I know how to engrave. I've got engraving equipment. And I did those. And then that's, like I said, I sold the other 2 Circuit City stores, but that wasn't enough to stop the bleeding. And we ultimately had to move home like 3 months after that. And in the garage I had my engraving equipment and everything. And I interviewed 5 separate interviews with a company called Reed's Jewelers here in Wilmington. They're based, but they have like 100 and some stores. They've become a big, huge company. They bought other jewelry companies. So I was interviewing with them, not wanting to go back into retail. Oh, dear Lord, not wanting to go back into retail. But I was so desperate, I was willing to do that. And I remember I finally talked to them and they said, well, they were going to pay me $24, which is less than half of what I was used to making. I could stay in Wilmington at the Independence Mall, and then I could, go from there and have my own store. Well, over the course of that, really 5 interviews over a little over 2 months. The final interview, they told me, so, well, Dave, we've had so many people apply for this job. We decided to start the opening pay at $17,000. And who would be in charge of agent recognition at this real estate office? She said, that would be Chuck. He's in a meeting right now. Can you sit down and wait a few minutes? I said, sure. And I'd realized, holy crap, I don't know how much I'm going to charge for these plaques. So I said, Ruby, can I borrow your calculator? And she goes, sure. Okay. She kind of looked at me weird. So she hands me the calculator and I sit down. I figured, okay, back in the retail days, and I said, okay, I want a good price point. So $199.95. And then I divided that by 12. And I said, okay, $16.65. We'll recognize 1 agent a month. So I finally get in to see Chuck and I'm talking to Chuck and I'm explaining to him, he loves the plaques. He thinks I did a great job. And he says, well, I told him, I said, yeah, it'll be this much, $199.95. He says, well, Dave, we recognize 2 agents here. I'm going, well, that's not a problem. He said, what price will you do for 2 agents? Recognizing 2 a month. And I said, okay, 60. I'll do 2 for 30. He said, 25 sounds awfully nice. I said, $27.50 sold. He laughed. He said, okay, we'll split the difference. So we did. And I said, Chuck, I'm really just starting out in Wilmington here. I said, you can contact these Circuit City stores in Charlotte. They'll tell you I'm taking care of them, me being 4 hours away. So I'm sure you won't have a problem with me taking care of you here. So he said, well, Davey got it on his face. He said, just tell me how much it is and I'll write you a check. So he did. And I walked out of there, Rod. And I walked out and I opened the trunk of my car. I put those plaques in there and I'll never forget what crossed my mind. This is what I said. I said, thank you, God, and what a country. So I went home and I'll never forget it. My mother, my father, and my wife were all going, he gave you the check up front? And I'm going, yeah. So the next day I put on a suit and I went literally 2 blocks up from the ERA franchise to the Century 21, David Swire. And you met Dave Swire in Toronto.
Yes.
Dave, it was his dad.
Okay.
So I walk and I go in and talk to Dave and Polly Swire, and I walk out with another check for $346.50. And I, again, said, thank you, God, and what a country. And I never, ever looked back.
So you start from the trunk of your car with some materials and some samples you provided earlier.
That's right.
I'm going to start this. You don't know what it is yet.
No, I don't.
But you're going to start this company, this recognition company, this rewards company, and how does it become a trunk of the car idea where you're going around individually? I know it's a long time. When did it go from you being an individual and how long until you started saying, oh my goodness, I need to add to my team. I'm getting too busy.
It wasn't 2 months.
Really?
I told my wife, who was working a job, I said, babe, I said, you're actually costing us money. If you come in and help me engrave, I can stay on the road a little longer, traveling the Southeast. And I said, and I can dwarf your income in one day. So she came to work with me. And then we added a part-time college kid, Robbie was his name. And he came in and he took over the engraving, and Janet handled the phones. And then I went out and sold.
Now, you say part-time. So, I mean, a lot of people listening to this are outsourced. They're independent contractors. So are you using Robbie right now as an independent contractor part-time or employee? How are you building your company?
No, I was a sole proprietor, and I just wrote him a check.
Okay.
Out of my company checkbook that we had. So yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So I stayed on the road, that kind of thing. And then I had a challenge about 2 years in, and another company copied me. And that guy's name was David too. And he lived up in Greensboro, North Carolina. He copied my product and he got my computer codes. And this was sadly from a relative of mine who apologized later, but I had one of my relatives working with me a little bit, and this guy was his friend anyway. They talked about it. He told him my contact for my engraving company, my suppliers, and all this kind of stuff. And then boom, this guy starts a company against me. So I was like, what in the world? So I started thinking there were two of them and one of me. And I said, okay, it forced me to innovate, which is a good thing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nothing better than a good competitor to make you get better. So instead of me traveling the Southeast, I said, there's no way I'm going to get there ahead of two people. So I came up with the idea to physically ship a 5x7 walnut plaque to prospects. And in the beginning, I was selling 1 out of 4 or 5. But as I got better and I brought on other people to train them how to do it too, we got it down to, my best people have actually got it down to 1 out of 1 point something. I mean, we're good today. That kind of deal, you know. I mean, our product and our program is the key. It's not just the award. It's the coaching program and everything that goes with it that makes people successful. So we have extremely good success. I mean, Walmart, for example, we have over 1,000 Walmart stores. We have all the Capitol Grills. We have all the Cheesecake Factories. We have Target stores and Home Depot and Lowe's and Cracker Barrel and a bunch of major companies, FedEx Ground, for example.
Okay, hold on, David, because I know.
Jumped ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know listeners are shaking their heads saying, "Well, wait a minute. This guy went from the trunk of his car, knocking on doors, saying, hey, interested in our rewards recognition program plaques initially, to the point where
right.
now with Fortune 500 companies and facilitating, fulfilling their rewards programs. Amazing feat, but also something you just mentioned. I think a lot of listeners are in this boat too. I have the opportunity at myself at my company to work, my wife works with me, and actually my brother works with me as well.
Good.
But family relative working relationships could be awfully tricky.
It is.
You got burnt, obviously, to say the least, on one of them. So with all the companies you're working with yourself, what lesson could you share the best way to work with someone in the family? Because right now we set a rule: no more family, no more friends. We've got to go beyond that. We've got to just get the best people for the opportunity. So where are you on that? How do you feel about family coworkers?
Actually, quite frankly, I have 3 family members working with us right now, and I have had probably 6 or 7 down through the years. But what I do is I tell them before they come to work with us, you are family. I expect more, not less out of you. Like my sister Paula, for example, she is one of our engagement coaches. We have 10 of those that work with our clients, that kind of thing, on a monthly basis. And Paula is, if not the top one, she's in the top 2. That's who she is. I mean, she knows that I expect more out of my family than I do others, because I've been abused by some family members in the past. And other employees, when they see your family members getting by with things, they want to test it too. So I nail my family in a hurry. If I see them doing something they shouldn't be doing, I will shin kick them faster than they can say their name.
Okay, so help me understand, go beyond family, recruiting talent. What are your parameters, qualifications, filters? How do you recruit talent?
By having an amazing company culture. And by that, I mean, if you come to my company, Rod, and I hope you'll come to our book club, which is every Wednesday morning at 9:30 for an hour, where we have all 60 some of our employees come into our training room, and I buy books, pass them out. They read a chapter, we come in and we discuss it for an hour. And everybody reads the same chapter. And I've had people tell me, well, Dave, you're going to be having the exact same comments. No, you got your Uncle Bill you think of. I got my Aunt Betty. I've got a child of mine that has this problem that they've encountered and that they faced. And everybody has a different story. So we spend that time and we reinforce the company culture. So if you will come, Rod, you will see, my friend, firsthand, is if you come into that meeting with us, I will say, Rod, ask how many of the employees here today are here because other employees told them how much they loved working at my employees. And you will see, my friend, 3 out of 4 hands minimum go up. So the best advertisement for anyone in any company is the employees in the company.
I agree completely. I'm going to go to the book club. I love it. I mean, when I met someone in town, we'll make sure that happens when I'm visiting my daughter. But for you, what makes you or your team filter someone and say, yeah, they're the right person for this team? From that perspective, good fit, bad fit, what's your qualifications there?
All right, first of all, they have to have an amazing attitude. I'm not going to tolerate anybody griping, complaining. We don't want that. Matter of fact, the first thing new employees read is the no complaining rule. It's a book. Anyway, so from that, after attitude is in check, then we make sure that they are the type of individual who wants to get better tomorrow than they are today. I'm not interested in having employees who are, I'm good enough. No, you're not. Because people who feel like they're good enough are roadkill in the way of those who are constantly wanting to improve. They will leave them in the dust. And I want no employees on our team not being aggressive in learning and improving their lives.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Hey, listen up. We got a lot more to talk about with David Long. I want to find out the mistakes that great leaders make. And then we got to dive into the meat of this, and that is this reward system that David has created. And he just talked about these coaches he has that implements these systems. So when we come back to the Massimo Show, we're really going to get to the meat of potatoes here and talk about how to be a great leader and how to implement this system called rewards. So stick with us. Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, president and founder of the Massimo Group. And did you know that for over the past 11 plus years, we've worked with thousands of independent contractors, solopreneurs, and small business owners just like you in repositioning their and or their team's efforts so they can build the personal, professional practice they've always dreamed of. We provide coaching programs for all levels of experience, earnings, and yes, success. So if you're finally ready to get off that transaction treadmill and chasing deals that are growing nowhere and start building the personal, professional business and life consisting of greater wealth and more time, well, check us out at Massimo.coach. That's Massimo.coach. Okay, we're back with David Long, author of Build to Lead, the 7 Management Rewards Principles of Becoming a Top 10 Manager. So if you're a top 10 manager, that must mean you're a great team leader. So before we get into what it takes to be a great team leader, this rewards principle, let's talk about what makes it to be a bad, poor, inept team leader. What's some of the greatest mistakes or elements you find that just show people having issues with their leadership?
Wow. I think the number one thing that will get people in trouble as a leader is keeping the weak people on the team too long. I have never, ever had a time that I have looked back on it and said, you know what? I wish I'd have kept so-and-so another 6 months. That's not the case. If they have proven themselves, Rod, not to be a fit for our company, a culture fit, which is extremely important to me. I'm extremely protective of our culture. As soon as I realize they are not a good fit for our culture, they are gone. We will give them an opportunity to get their act together. And if they don't, they're automatically gone. We do not tolerate it. For example, you have a lot of, and you know how salespeople are. We're both salespeople. And sometimes they're prima donnas. So I have some salespeople that can make several $100,000 a year and working, they work hard, they earn it. But the problem is that I've had to fire my top salesperson twice in the last decade, a little more than a decade, about 12 years. So what I do today is when we're hiring new salespeople, the last barrier of entry to them getting into the company is they go to lunch with me. And I sit there, Rod, and I look them in the eye. I'm going, let's just say if I was talking with you, I'd say, Rod, I tell you what, man, my people are excited about you coming on board and everything. I said, but I want you to understand one thing. We hope you come in and just sell $1 million right away and you make a couple $100,000 and you're having a phenomenal life. I said, that is our goal and wish for you. I said, but here's the deal. If you ever start talking down to the other team members who are doing everything to make you look awesome and doing all the fulfillment, and everything else. If you ever talk down to them and treat them like they're your slaves or something, and I find out about it, and I hold my one finger up, I'm going to give you one warning, one. And I'm telling you this before you're hired. And if you come in and you get the one warning and you ever have it happen again, that it gets back to me that you're doing that, you're gone. I don't care if you're making $1 million for the company a year. I don't care. My culture is more important to me than the piddly amount of money that seems like a lot of money, but it's really not. Not when you sacrifice the entire company in the process.
Awesome. Just awesome. Well, David, I want to jump into this rewards program. And before I do, you talked about, please correct me on the term, I think you said engagement coaches, but I could be wrong.
That's correct.
Is that correct? What's the role of an engagement coach?
That's an extremely important thing. And I figured that out, that we needed engagement coaches in the first 3 months of being in business. My wife was the first engagement coach. What it was basically is I figured out that people are busy. We're busy running our companies, and we don't remember to recognize our employees. You remember those real estate offices I was telling you about?
Yep.
If we didn't contact them, they would forget to recognize their agents. So I said, you know what? You can't build a company adding a client, losing a client, adding a client, losing a client. So I need to make sure that they get the value that they need to see on an ongoing monthly and annual basis, that they stay on board with us. So we started contacting them and saying, hey, Rod, we haven't turned in your winners yet for May. So we follow up on them. We help managers. The engagement coach's responsibility is working with the clients and saying, Rod, what is it you want to improve in your company? And then we tie the recognition program to the things you want to improve. And the beautiful thing about it is it's flexible. 1 month you could focus on, you know what, we need to add new clients. We don't have enough clients, so we incentivize that. And then another, maybe a quarter later, you can say, well, you know what? I want to incentivize our dollar per ticket, how much they sell each client. We change it to that, or we heavily weigh it in that regard. We still give the top salesperson the recognition they need. But what if the top salesperson is selling 1,000 itty bitty little widgets and they have a big ticket, but there's no profit? We want to incentivize the things that make the company money. That's how you pay the bills and keep the doors open. So that's what we do, is the engagement coaches work with the clients and say, Rod, what is it you want to improve? All right, what's the top 5 things you want to improve? Okay, let's tie the recognition program to making sure that happens for you. And that's what is the difference between our company, my employees, and the average, if you want to call it trophy shop or awards dealer or recognition company or engagement company. That's what we do. We are the complete package, and we have a phenomenal retention rate just for that reason.
That goes so far beyond. Think about this from your perspective for the listener. Let's face it, what David was generally offering initially was a product. It was a plaque. That was not the great differentiator amongst your competition.
It's a commodity. You can get them anywhere.
So how do you enhance that? You provide programs that only, and you're right. Look, I'm busy. We're busy. Do we take the time? And if we took the time to recognize, would we know the right way for structure or formulate a program of proper recognition that would drive to the bottom line? And that's what you do.
That's right. That's the key.
So that was part 1 of my conversation with Wall Street Journal bestselling author David Long. On our next episode, we'll have part 2, where David talks about his book, Built to Lead, 7 Management Rewards Principles for Becoming a Top 10% Manager. And he walks us through each of the 7 principles. Along the way, we'll also talk about the book club he has instituted at his company and how he has gotten to the point where he takes 24 weeks of vacation a year. You don't want to miss part 2. Until next time, I'm Rod Santomassimo, and this is the Massimo Show. Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo. And for those of you out there who are in the commercial real estate space, please be sure to check out our next live event, which is all focused on you getting ready for next year and building your own personal playbook to put you in the best position to make the most in your commissions. That information can be found at www.creready2020.com. Again, that's www.creready2020.com. I hope to see you there.